All right, welcome in, everybody. It is Feast Week Day 2. It's Tuesday. That's not Brian Power or Rob Vito, but that's Matt Winnick. He's filling in today. Matt, introduce yourself to the Full Court Press chat.
Yeah, Matthew Winnick, college basketball analyst, consultant, do some content for Basket Under Review. Go check that out. I do Weekend Under Review with Brian Ralph twice a week, every week, Mondays and Fridays that comes out. Follow me on Twitter at Matthew Winnick. Lots of hoops content coming out there.
I can't. The Basket Under Review site is as good as it gets. I mean, if you're trying to, if you're just a fan of being tuned into college basketball, or you're trying to handicap games in any capacity, to me, it's like, I feel like it's like the Wall Street Journal of like college hoops. Like, I remember being in college, and I don't know if I'm dating myself with that, but you used to have to I went to like business school, and you used to have to like read the Wall Street Journal every day. Like it was like a thing back in the mid 2000s. But it's in my opinion, that's the first thing I do every morning. I wake up, I go to the Basket Under Review site. It's phenomenal. It's cheap. It's super affordable. The stuff there is fantastic. Your stuff is excellent. And we're thrilled to have you fill in today and a couple of times this week as my co-hosts are traveling for Thanksgiving. That's something I don't have to do this year, and I couldn't be happier about it because I just get to sit home and watch games all day. It's been great. But Matt, we're gonna get right into it. So we pick a feature game and then we let it rip off the chat for the rest of the hour. Today's feature game. Let's go to the two ranked teams. Let's go out to the Players era. Houston, Tennessee. How are you seeing this one?
The first thing that comes to my mind when I think about this game is Tennessee being first in the country in offensive rebounding rate, 49%. And then Houston, where you immediately think, oh, elite offensive rebounding. And their two games against power conference teams, Auburn and Syracuse, they're +3 in offensive rebounding. So they're not dominating the offensive glass like they have in previous years. JoJo Tugler, for all his strengths, he's a good offensive rebounder, but he's not physically extremely strong, right? It's his arms. He's tipping balls out. He's not grabbing these and going back up with it. And he's been awful around the rim. So you think, big man advantage, pretty clearly Tennessee here. So if Tennessee is dominating the boards, if they have the better big man grouping, at least on the glass and offensively, then Houston has to win the guard game pretty significantly. Obviously, Nate Ament and Jacoby Gillespie were both unbelievable in their game against Rutgers, but it was Rutgers, and they were red hot from the field, and they're not going to be red hot in this one. So if the trio of Kingston Flemings, Emmanuel Sharp, and Milos Uzan significantly outplay Tennessee's perimeter, then Houston still probably finds a way, despite the rebounding battle, that they'll probably lose.
Yeah, so I should have mentioned at the top, we have a rematch of an Elite Eight matchup last year in a game where I felt like Tennessee had a very solid game plan in that game. They just dug themselves far too big of a hole. If I'm going off memory, but I think that was the game where they were still in single digits, like almost 15 minutes into the half, just could not hit a shot in the early stages of that game. And it turned into a pretty competitive game when it was all said and done. But they just dug themselves far too big of a hole in that game. Just going back, kind of, reading through the box score of that one quickly and just remembering that the flow of that game, I feel like there's going to be it's going to be tough to get shots off, maybe for both teams, good shots at least. So I'm not a huge, I've told the chat many times, I'm not much of a totals handicapper. That's not really how I go about it. But this is one where I could see points being at a little bit of a premium. So I sort of lean to the under, but not with any sort of real conviction.
And the other thing with that is both teams, you'd think very physical, get to the free throw line a lot. They don't get to the free throw line at all. So this is just going to be a lot of shot making from two teams with, spotty shot making. Now, of course, that one under in March Madness, but Tennessee shot 17% from three. They'll probably shoot better this game, but for those that were watching Tennessee's exhibition game against Duke, probably the most physical team Tennessee's played so far this year. Obviously, that game didn't count. Ament and Gillespie had serious trouble getting good shots off. And that's probably happening again. It's just going to come down to which team hits shots.
Yeah, and I think back to our conversation about Tennessee Rutgers yesterday and thinking that we were all kind of wrong on that game, and I'll address how wrong we were on the show yesterday in just a second, because that was not our best work on the show yesterday. But like Matt said before we got out of the air, he's like, I wasn't here for that. I said, yeah, no, you're right. This is a clean slate. But I thought Rutgers would give Tennessee a little bit more trouble than they did in terms of like open looks and stuff like that. And I chalk that up more to just Rutgers is really like starting at the bottom right now. So it's like, I'm not going to give Tennessee just a ton of credit for blowing that team out. Yeah. Rutgers is a loss to Central Connecticut State. I mean, they're just that's not something like I don't view Tennessee's huge win over Rutgers as like, oh, like this team is that much better than I thought they were prior to yesterday when I thought Rutgers might cover that number. So yeah, it'll be an interesting game. I'm fine at like these are tougher games to bet. These sort of neutral court. Your edges are likely not going to be in those, but we're going to hit some of the bigger ones. Now, again, yesterday was probably our worst show from a like win-loss perspective, so we apologize for that. Now, I personally had one of my best days of the season. I went 4-1 on my 5 picks for clients, but all the stuff we talked about on the show just went up in flames. So we're going to try to switch that here. And as always, we're going to hit the games that you want to talk about in the chat. If you're going to donate to the channel, we're going to hit you right away. And so Garth wants to go way off the board here, way off the beaten path. I love this stuff. This is what I live for. 8-4 in chat play. So yeah, we've done well for Garth. Every time he brings up a play, we talk about it and it hits. He wants to talk about Hampton tonight. And Matt, I got to ask you, like, when was the last time Maryland Eastern Shore had a home non-conference game of like with an actual opponent? I feel like they don't get these very often. And so I'll give you a second to navigate there. But this is Hampton. They are heading to, I believe it's Princess Anne, Maryland tonight to take on Maryland Eastern Shore. Garth leans Hampton. I'll let you sort of start it off, but I'm higher than the market on Hampton. So we'll see what you have to say about this one.
Yeah, well, Hampton hasn't shot a lick as of late. Now, granted, they're not a very good shooting team, but they started the season 38% from 3 against Milwaukee in a tight 4-point loss at Milwaukee. Pretty impressive result. And then since then, 23%, 15%, 25%, 17%, 30%. The shots aren't going in. Not a lot of shooters, but the shots still aren't going in. Maryland Eastern Shore is going to make you hit threes, and they're due for some defensive regression. They're allowing teams to shoot 25% from 3. So if you're a trends person, if you think status quo is going to continue, then Hampton's going to have a lot of trouble scoring. But if you believe that Hampton is not a 25% three-point shooting team, and you don't believe that Maryland Eastern Shore is a 25% defensive three-point shooting team, then Hampton probably scores at least some points here. Maryland Eastern Shore got a pretty significant 9-point KenPom boost for beating Binghamton in the nobody was watching Canisius MTE over the weekend. Binghamton was down to basically 6 players. It was a disaster. And Maryland Eastern Shore has the longest bench in the country. So they were able to sort of outwill Binghamton on a back-to-back. But the day prior, they lost to Canisius, one of the worst teams in the country. Hampton just has to be good here. They have to crash the offensive glass. They have to use their size and athleticism advantage, and they have to just shoot okay from 3. And if they do that, I know Maryland Eastern Shore gets like 1 Division I home game non-con a year, and this might be a big spot for them. Granted, students might be home for Thanksgiving. Hampton should win this game by more than 3.
Yeah, I agree with that. I got to go out to St. Francis last year to see a game. And their coach, Coach Krimmel, who ended up becoming, when I went out there, I didn't think St. Francis was just going to become like a national news story. But he came in, so I got to go into like the pre-thing for season ticket holders. I was there as a media person, and he came in, and it was cool. You don't always see this, but he came in and talked to everyone like 20 minutes before the game, talked about who was in, who was out. And one of the things he said was, listen, we have a hard time getting home games. If someone wants to come play you, like, and it's a team that's like, I think it was Lehigh that came in for them. In this case, it's Hampton. You just have to schedule it whenever. The reason I bring that up is Maryland Eastern Shore was up here playing like 3 games in 3 days. they get like a day off. Now they're turning around and essentially stepping up in class on their home floor, because Hampton is still a step up in class from a MEAC school. The thing I've noticed about Hampton, so I got to go down there 2 seasons ago as well, and it was a complete circus. Ivan Thomas has really instilled a somewhat of a professional atmosphere down there. He, of course, comes from Georgetown. He was one of Ed Cooley's guys, Providence. And then, I believe he's from the DC area.
Yeah.
But that team is functioning at such a higher level than they have in past years. And I think last year was kind of obviously year zero, get some people in. I think Hampton could surprise some folks. And Garth, I'm kind of with you. Hampton is one I'm going to give a lot more thought if that number is still there.
And they have your guy. They have your guy, Mike Ely.
That's right.
Siena
That's
legend.
right. Former Siena Saint. I feel like if you're a guard at Siena, you put in 2 years and then you just go wherever you want pretty much at this point. Guys like Jalen Pickett, Javion McCollum, Jordan King, so many.
You're a lot better than Mike Ely, though.
Yes, Mike Ely was a little bit of a bust at Siena.
Yeah.
He's always hurt. He was always hurt. Hopefully he'll be better for Hampton. And Garth, I think you've got a good bet on the Hampton side there. All right, let's hit the chat. Let's see, these northern schools kicking ass last night. Let's go. All right, we'll do this. I'm going to get one more. I'm going to go to big game number 2, which I was going to put behind Tennessee, the Tennessee game, and then we'll get back into the chat. So my kind of co-feature for today, I know you got a chance to see this team in person a couple weeks ago. Looked awesome. St. John's taking on Baylor, rematch of a game from last year that was down in the Bahamas, which had a tremendous finish and was just one of the sort of the games of Feast Week last year. You got to see St. John's up close and personal a couple weeks ago against Alabama. How do you think they match up with Baylor here?
I don't think Baylor's good. There are 2 bye games, non-covers against Tarleton and UTRGV, granted 2 decent mid-majors, teams that could win their league. They beat Washington. Washington shoots 15% from 3 of 20. They beat Creighton. Creighton is in all sorts of shambles, getting killed left and right, lose their starter in Jackson McAndrew, and Baylor needs a late surge to beat them. So what have they proven outside of they can beat Washington at home when Washington can't shoot, and they can beat a reeling Creighton team with the late pull away? St. John's in their 2 games against any team worth something, like down to the wire with Alabama, down to the wire with Iowa State, 2 teams that could very easily make the Final Four or Sweet 16 at bare minimum. Those are 2 teams. One team has proven they can compete with the top of the country, and one team has proven basically nothing. Baylor has been without Justin Bodo all season. He continues to be out. He should be their starting center. He is their best defender. And then their leading scorer, Cameron Carr, shooting 53% from 3. So that's bound to get down at some point. There's just not a lot to love with this Baylor team. They're not overly big. They're not overly athletic. They're only shooting 36% from deep despite Cam Carr's hot start. I think St. John's kills them here.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. You could even talk me into making this one of the parlay legs. I too am not high on Baylor at all. I think it's been very interesting to watch Baylor since they won a national championship back in 2021, and just how good that Baylor team was defensively, and how bad they've been almost on how it's almost like they've dropped off on an annual basis defensively from what they were when they were like a true elite team, which was really, you'd have to go back to 2021 to find a really elite Baylor team when Scott Drew was getting praised for incredible defense and stuff like that. They still get good offensive players, but the defense has just dropped off every year. If I remember correctly, that game last year, I mean, they were on skates in the first half. They couldn't stay in front of a single St. John's player. Believe they were down 20 at one point early. And they almost just kind of willed their way back into that. But I also think that Baylor team maybe was a little bit more talented. It was just like they just kind of willed their way back into the game, hit a big shot. a lot had to go right for Baylor to win that game. I kind of think St. John's is just going to abuse them up front. You kind of mentioned it. Where's the rim defense going to come from? The front line of Baylor being weak. I think, you go back to yesterday, Iowa State maybe a little bit better equipped to disrupt St. John's guards. And I don't know that Baylor does that to them. So I too like St. John's in a bounce back spot here.
Yep, I'm with you there.
And so, we will do what we do on a daily basis. We will lock in the 3-teamer. I'll get a quick promotion in it. It is $5 Tuesday at WagerTalk. All handicappers will have a play up for $5. So check my page out. Check all the handicappers page. That is the promo on Tuesday. And we'll kind of, lock it in the parlay as we go along. But that's certainly a clubhouse leader, I think, right now. What would be St. John's minus the points. Mm-hmm. All right, let's go to the chat because while I'm on the topic, so I'll give one out that I bet that that's not going to go in the parlay, and I'll explain why. And then I'm also going to give Matt a chance to tell me if I should play back or not. So I am pretty confident that Lipsy is out for Iowa State today. I think the line move would suggest that. I put this in late last night while I was up sweating out Maryland UNLV at like 1 a.m. I took Creighton plus 9.5. Had a feeling I was going to end up with a good number there. And part of my reasoning for that was my number already leaned Creighton regardless at that number, even if Lipsy was in. Now he's out. Now I have a good number. But matchup wise, do you like Iowa State at the new number? How are you seeing Iowa State Creighton?
These teams already played. The game didn't count, but they played this October in the exhibition slate. Iowa State, who I'm almost certain had no Taman Lipsy in that one. Actually, I do know they had no Taman Lipsy in that one. They killed Creighton. I think they won by 17. And essentially the way the game went was Creighton, like they always do, forced a lot of isolation, and non-Taman Lipsy guards stunk at it because Killian Toure and Jamarion Bateman, who will have to play much bigger roles here, are just role players. They're not on-ball guys. And Milan Momcilovic is more of an off-ball than an on-ball as well. And then Iowa State's pressure and aggression just killed Creighton, who doesn't have a lead guard. Nick Graves is on the ball the most, but he's not a great shooter. Blake Harper is a little bit shaky, kind of point forward, but stepping up 3 levels of competition after Howard. And this was just a defensive slugfest. Now, obviously, teams were tinkering, trying things out. Owen Freeman didn't play, though granted, Owen Freeman barely played yesterday because he couldn't get a rebound. Iowa State is good enough to win this game by 10 without Taman Lipsy. But it is going to be a lot tougher. The margin for error is going to be small. They're going to have to play an A game. I don't know if they play an A game after a super emotional win. I do think they hang on and win this one, but obviously double digits is a pretty significant number to cover when you are talking about a Creighton team that is pretty desperate for a win at this point.
Yeah, so that was my thought process with playing the 9.5 and just saying, you know what, I'll play it, I'll go to bed, I'll see what happens in the morning. Like, worst case scenario, I think I'm going to end up with a good number at 9.5. If I'm right about Lipsy being out, you're going to have a young backcourt in Iowa State. It's still like, I think you made a really good point. You still have to win by 10. Like, Iowa State can very well win this game. Maybe it's not by 10. I guess the devil's advocate would be, Iowa State's been a team the last couple of years that, like, they'll have a guy out. The sharp guys will bet the other side, and they just come out and win by 25 anyway. Like, it's no big deal. And that is certainly a concern of mine. I do see that, like, as soon as this hit 6.5, it seems to have popped back up to 7 most places. So if we're just having a betting conversation here, it looks like the resistance point is 6.5, where folks are just like, yeah, like I'll roll the dice with Iowa State without Lipsy at minus 6.5. And I can't really disagree with that. I'll have to, again, this is a 2 p.m. tip. I am locked in with a good number on Creighton. Maybe I'll play for a middle for a little bit less, but at the very least, it is going to be difficult in my opinion, without Lipsy, for Iowa State to win this game by double digits. Will they still win? Maybe. I think double digits could be difficult.
It's fair.
All right, let's hit the chat and Bayou Bets. That's my buddy Keith Landry. He says Otzelberger coached under McDermott for years. These two highly respect each other and know each other well. Could see this game being within 10. Bayou, I hope you are right, because if I do play back, it won't be for the full amount. So it will be, I will need a Creighton cover of 9.5 one way or another. All right, let's go back to the MEAC here. Costley says, anyone got action on Rider Coppin State? Rider's kind of a mess right now. Rider school might be closed if they don't get some money. Like, I think they're $130 million in debt at that school right now. It's kind of a mess. I know Kevin Badgett's been there forever. He's like vowed to like help any way possible. The reason I bring it up is I wonder if that's crept into athletics at all. I mean, this is this drop off for them is like in the MAC conference. Like they sort of went from a team that was always kind of in the mix to now they're probably going to finish last this year. At least they are projected to finish very close to the bottom of the league. Let me head over to the extra board to find a current number on this one.
About 9.
See, now my problem here, Matt, is Coppin State, I think, is one of the worst teams in the country. So is Rider bad enough where you're willing to take Coppin State with the points, or will you lay it with Rider? That is the question everyone's dying to know.
I don't think that Rider should be 9 points favorites about anyone in the country other than Mississippi Valley State. Now, the flip side of that is if you're looking at KenPom, Coppin State is the second worst team in the country behind Mississippi Valley State. So the thing with Rider, it's hard to really think about because you see the results and they got absolutely murdered by Houston. They got murdered by Rutgers, who then turned around and lost by 15 to Central Connecticut. Rider has the second toughest schedule in the country so far. They've played
Virginia, Rutgers, Texas, Houston. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
They played the second hardest and number one in terms of defensive rating. So they played the toughest defensive schedule in the country. So when you look and see that they have the worst shooting numbers in the entire country, well, that makes sense. They've played 4 really good defensive teams. Coppin State, much better defensive than offensive, but they're not particularly good. And they've played 2 sub-200 teams, but they got murdered in both of them. LaSalle, 28, Central Michigan, 23. 2 completely non-competitive teams. When you hear that, you think close. Like when Bingham, like we just talked about it, Maryland Eastern Shore went to Canisius and played Canisius and Binghamton. 2 awful teams. The final spreads in those ones were both relatively close. This is probably close. I don't think you should do anything with that. But yeah, Rider 9 is a lot of points.
Hampton is up to -5 since we talked about it. So someone agreed out there because Hampton has gotten slammed over the last 20 minutes or so, probably up to where it should be. So I think it was Garth. I think you have a good bet with Hampton if you took -2.5. Back to this, as far as this game is concerned. So my buddy Aaron Kidd, he's a ball knower and he's also a very big Virginia fan, goes to a lot of games, texted me when he was at that Virginia Rider game and said, Flash Burton looks like he's a stud that should be very good in the MAC. I agreed with him on that standpoint. I guess I come back to like Zion Cruz was a guy as a MAC guy. I watch a lot of MAC basketball, MAAC. I know we're changing the name finally, apparently, of the conference. So there's no more confusion, but I really liked, I was very high on Cruz coming in last year. Now he's in year 2 at Rider. So it's like, I look at this Rider team, I look at Coppin State, like Rider's like significantly better in my opinion still, but I'm kind of with you. Like laying 9 is awfully difficult based on just sort of what they've looked like so far, what they look like on paper outside of those guards. It's very difficult to lay 9.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of points in a game that will be very slow and not a lot of offense.
Steven, I disagree a little bit. Rider has a little bit of a home court edge. That's always when the MAC schools don't like to go there for whatever reason, but it's like whenever Sienna's good, I feel like they always get tripped up at Rider. But maybe to that point, like that's February. It's a small gym. They have a crowd. I don't know how the crowd's going to be Thanksgiving Tuesday at Rider. So we'll see about that. But I don't think they've had a home game yet outside of a non-board game, non-D1. So maybe they will get some fans in attendance.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back. Let's go back to the chat. Someone says it's their first live show. We very much appreciate you tuning in. If you missed the show live, head on over to the WagerTalk YouTube channel, and you can watch this on replay. While you're there, drop a comment. I know I saw a lot of the comments yesterday were like, yeah, you guys were trash. Yesterday was probably our worst show. But we've had shows where we've hit like everything. So we need to keep that same energy. And I had one of my best days yesterday. So I'll trade the bad show for the big client pick day, sort of any day of the week, I guess. But we want to win them all. That's always the goal. And we are going to try to win more bets today. That's the plan. We'll lock in a parlay by the end of the show. And let's go to Ethan. Ethan came to the Bowling Green game with Brian Power and I. Great time with him, checking out Bowling Green, Lemoyne a couple weeks ago. I know he's a Michigan State fan. So, Ethan, any opinion on East Carolina, Michigan State? He's not super familiar with ECU. Matt, I think this is kind of like one of the lesser tournaments. I was a little surprised to see Michigan State pop up in this field. They're a big favorite against East Carolina. What can you tell Ethan about this game?
Yeah, this is less of a tournament and more of Michigan State and North Carolina wanted to play each other, and they wanted to also get a secondary game in there. So they were able to find two teams, in this case, St. Bonaventure and East Carolina, that wanted to play a power conference team. Everyone's happy. Everyone gets two games. We can all bid are in warm. I believe they're in Florida. Fort Myers. Everyone's happy. East Carolina, if you're a regression type person, which I definitely can be in certain situations, somehow, and it feels impossible, bottom 15 in the country in 3-point offense and 3-point defense. That's impossible. Through 4 games to be shooting under 23% and to be allowing 41.5%. That 3-point gulf of 19% is insane. That cannot last for any longer. Michigan State, of course, the whole story when they just played Kentucky was they can't shoot and they had the best shooting game of their lives. So if you don't believe in regression, I would say watch that game. Regression is real. But then they went right back to under 30% against Detroit Mercy in the game they won by 28. I believe they were favored by more. Michigan State, not much of a look-ahead team because Tom Izzo is a very focused man. But obviously you got to think about look-ahead at least a little bit. They get North Carolina in 2 days. East Carolina is going to allow teams to shoot a little bit worse from 3 eventually. They're going to hit a couple eventually. They have like under 15 makes on the year. And they have a couple of massive dudes. Their starting center, Gio Emejuru, also a former Siena guy. He's one of the biggest, just like physically largest men in the country. They have 2 other 6'10 guys. Then they got, they have 3 other 6'10 guys and then a 6'8 guy. So they have the physicality to not get absolutely overwhelmed by Michigan State. Think about the huge line. Think about Michigan State not dominating down low with ECU's size, atypical of a mid-major, and think about East Carolina getting some 3-point luck, and then you're thinking 20 might be a lot.
Yeah, so the day that you went to that St. John's, Alabama game, I was up in East Lansing, and I got to see Michigan State play Arkansas. Great game. It was an awesome time, fantastic environment. My big takeaway from that game was if Michigan State could make a 3, they would have won this game by 15, 20 points. I mean, they led the majority of the game, a lot of the game, and I think they were like 1 for 14 from 3. So goes back to something that you talked about right at the top. If East Carolina is going to give 3-pointers up, like that's, if you're helping Michigan State right there, if you're going to kind of not defend the 3-point arc and they're going to get good looks because they're obviously going to create in transition. They've got size. They can get in the paint. So this is a huge number, and I think it's ticked up even a little bit. I think at the opener, I would have maybe leaned Michigan State. Now, I know I had the opener jotted down as 21.5. Are we up to like 23.5, 24 right now? I think that might be where we're at here. I'm trying. I know there's so many games, like even like 2 huge screens. I still lose my spot with how many games.
I'm seeing
about
I'm sorry. 21.5.
So that's come down. So 21.5 down to 20. These 20-point spreads are tough. For me, typically, if I'm like, I'll play a 20+ point underdog if I like it. Like I had Radford last night. That was a winner. Ethan, I see it. Opener was 23.5 down to 20.5. Michigan is -20. I'm not big on laying 20 points, like almost regardless of what the scenario is. It's not the way I really care to bet. So I'm just going to sit that one out of making a sort of play there either way. But I do think if Michigan State's hitting threes, it's probably getting out of hand at some
less
point.
likely than likely.
Yes. Yeah, because they turned around and didn't shoot it particularly well against San Jose State. That's going to be their undoing this year, is the ability to knock down an outside shot for sure. Okay, let's move on. Let me get the I threw the NC State zip up on just because I needed something to wear today, but we should talk about that game. You talked about you brought up Michael Ellie, and then it made me think of a time at Siena when we had guys like Jordan, like Jalen Pickett, like Javion McCollum, Jordan King, all of these good players, and that era was Shaheen Holloway era at St. Peter's, and I can remember, like, it's tale as old as time. Siena's rolling along, everything's working great. We're blowing teams out by 10, 15 points, and then we have to go play Shaheen Holloway's St. Peter's team and get punched right in the mouth. And that is what happened to NC State yesterday. Punched in the mouth by Seton Hall. They lose a game that I don't think many thought they were going to lose. Now they play Boise State. I kind of think they bounce back here. What do you think, NC State, Boise State?
What Shaheen Holloway did was he exposed the one serious flaw of NC State, which is they have no rim protection. Van Allen Lubin at 6'9" is their 5-man, and he has 1 block this season. He has 1 block all season. Darion Williams at the 4 at 6'6". They're small. Obviously, they're aggressive. That's what Will Wade does. But if you can get past their first line of defense and get towards the rim, you're going to score a lot of points. And Seton Hall was 65% from 2. Boise State is 249th in the country at 2-point field goal percentage. They're not big. They're not athletic. They don't have a post presence. They're not overly physical. That is like music to NC State's ears. When you can't score inside, even VCU, who almost took down NC State, 58% from 2. If you can't dominate on the interior, you have no chance against NC State. And Boise State cannot do that. They struggled to score inside against Montana State. They were sub 40% from 2 against Montana State. They're not going to dominate inside, which means NC State's going to win this game, and probably by a lot.
Yeah, I was in Albuquerque last year for a game. It was New Mexico, Boise State. Shout out to the folks at New Mexico because they really took care of me. I got to basically stand on the court for that game. The pit is awesome, and the reason I bring that up is, like, one of my biggest takeaways from that game when Boise just got run out of the building was just how unathletic they looked next to a lot of other teams that I already seen that year up close that were in sort of like similar, like a similar, like, A10 Mountain West type teams. And that was my big takeaway, was Boise just really lacks athletes. And I would say that the same is probably true this year. I haven't been overly impressed with their half court offense. And so, like, this is the type of game, in my opinion, where, like you said, NC State, the athleticism should sort of reign supreme. And I just don't think Boise can do what Seton Hall did to them. So this was one on the opener of -6.5. I had a pretty strong lean toward NC State. I had not bet it yet, but it would only be NC State in this one for me, or pass. Yeah. What is let me see if I can, again, navigating through the board here. Yeah, still 6.5. I mean, my number's like 8 and change there. I that might be a big enough edge to play. As long as like the Boise's just as long as those rims aren't so soft that every Boise shot's going in, I think you're good with NC State. Probably a double-digit win for the Wolfpack.
Yeah.
All right, let's head back to the comments. We're getting to more games today. It is one of the pluses of I guess only having 2 of us is we kind of are just flying through games. So Ethan, appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you all tuning in. We're here to help you try to make sense of this massive slate. So while you're here, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Go check out Matt's Twitter if you're unfamiliar with Basket Under Review or what he's doing. We very much appreciate it. And for 25 more minutes, we're going to keep rattling off thoughts and opinions and give out a couple best bets. So I knew it was going to get brought up at some point. Listen, I told you before the show, as someone that lives 30 minutes outside of Syracuse, and even though I didn't grow up here, I root for the local team. Like I want Syracuse to do well because I like going to big games at the Dome, and we haven't had like a team that was like really worth going to see the last couple of years. And after yesterday, even though I'm so disappointed that they missed 17 foul shots and lost that game, I would say the Syracuse team might be worth going to see. They showed me something yesterday. I thought the defense was really good. They didn't have Donnie Freeman, yet they hung around with a very good Houston team. Quick turnaround, tricky matchup with Kansas. Is this where Freeman being out hurts them a little bit?
Syracuse's interior defense is awesome. They're really good around the rim. And that's really important because Kansas, without Darian Peterson, cannot shoot. The 4 games they've played now since he's gotten hurt, 8, 5, 4, and 6 threes. That's 23 threes in 4 games. That's a very low number. That's barely over 5. And those 2 games that Peterson played, 10 and 12 threes. Big difference. So if Kansas's only action is really getting downhill, Melvin Council getting the rim, Flory Badunga post-ups, it's a big problem against Syracuse that has proven now, even against a power conference team in Houston, who shot 33% from inside the arc. Syracuse can defend the hoop at a very high level, and I'll often like throw a red flag if a team is defending the 2-point arc or the 2-point area if they're not blocking shots. Syracuse is 17th in the country in block rate. So they're blocking shots and they're defending the rim. Kansas has become a defensive team since Peterson went out. Syracuse's offense is way better with Donnie Freeman. He's out. I don't think a lot of points in this game. That is my inclination. Both teams are going to slow it down a little bit. And in a slower game where not a lot of points are happening, you got to lean the dog at least a little bit.
Yep, I think you've kind of nailed it. I would say under is probably the best way to go. I think if they didn't I would probably like Syracuse more in this spot had they not just played a game like the one they played yesterday, lost in the fashion that they lost, left it all out there, went to overtime. I'd like them a little bit more today, but I could definitely see a lower scoring game. How about William Kyle? He's like what a difference it is watching Syracuse play defense when it's William Kyle down there instead of Eddie Lampkin.
I think William Kyle could jump over Eddie Lampkin.
I think you're probably right. You talked about blocks. He had 6 blocks against Delaware State. He 10 plus rebounds in 3 of the 5 games he's played in. And then yesterday, his first double of the season, 12 points, 10 boards. Syracuse defense was awful the last couple of years at times, like downright awful. Especially last year, like they were just such a mess. The first year of Autry, it was like, okay, we're going to try to play some man, but really all that is just running up and down the floor and not playing the zone. And then we will play the zone a little bit. This is such a better defensive team than Syracuse the last couple of years that you have to almost play Syracuse unders right now when you can, because you're still getting some of that prior from the past couple of years. Like this is just a much better defensive Syracuse team. So I'm with you. Low scoring game.
Syracuse, 0 possessions of zone this year. 0.
Yeah, that's what he always wanted to do. That was like something Autry said when he took over was we're really going to get away from playing zone. Now he maybe it's just the personnel. Maybe he's got the personnel to not have to fall back on it or he's been able to successfully phase it out at this point. But I agree that the defense was very, very impressive because really typical Houston's going to get in the paint and do whatever they want. And they were not able to do that yesterday. Okay, let's head back to the chat. So, okay, I knew the early games were coming at some point. Bayou Bet says, let's talk some breakfast ball. Towson, Liberty. Yeah, this is a good game. This definitely deserves a spot on the show. Is this in our 11 a.m. tip time? I know it's one of the early ones today. Towson, Liberty. I believe we have a 7.5 on the number. Hold on, Bayou. We're gonna give me a second to pull this game up. Yeah, here we go. Towson, Liberty. This one is, I believe, in Orlando. Liberty opened a 7.5 point favorite. It looks like we're down to 6 some places. Do you agree with the Towson money?
Yeah. I mean, listen, when the market sees a team that leads the country in 3-point percentage 2 weeks into the season, they're always going to go against that team. It's going to happen every time. Liberty shooting 46% from threes. So they're like, okay, well, they're not this good. We're going to go against it. If there's a team that could actually shoot 46% from three on the year, it's this Liberty team. They have so many elite shooting options that I think it's totally possible. You flip that switch. Towson, we were talking earlier about East Carolina and how they were impossibly bad at both offensive and defensive three-point shooting. Towson is impossibly bad at shooting and impossibly good at defending it. Towson games combined on average have both teams shooting a collective 24% from three. Basic math, that's half of what Liberty's shooting from three. So one thing is going to break. Either nobody hits threes in Towson games or Liberty hits a lot of threes. There is something is going to change in this one. So it's very tough to predict which side of that pendulum is going to go. So you got to think about extras or other things that aren't three-point shooting, even though the regression is a big piece of games right now. Liberty is the smallest team in the country, the single shortest team per Ken Pom. And Towson's elite on the offensive and defensive glass. If Liberty has any ability to rebound this basketball, they'll win this game probably by more than the spread suggests. But Liberty has not played a single team in the top 100 in offensive rebounding rate yet. Towson is very much in the top 100. If Towson wins the rebounding battle by 10, 15 points, they could win this game outright. So I think if you're a believer in Towson's rebounding, you're a believer in them on this spread. And if you're a believer in Liberty shooting, you're going to take them with the points.
You know, I haven't gotten involved for or against Towson yet, but coming into the season, knowing they had Tyler Tejada and Dylan Williamson back, I thought that they would improve offensively this year. Like I thought, like looking at this team. So of course, Towson ends up having a great CAA season last year, gets upset in the conference tournament. They return guys that I don't know that I fully expected them to be able to retain. So that was like very positive that they were able to bring those guys back. And yet, to your point, through 5 or 6 games, they're still outside the top 300 nationally in field goal percentage, 42.2% from the field. And they are one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the country. So it looks like that hasn't really changed. And yeah, I mean, if you can't hit shots and Liberty gets hot, like it could be a 10-point game pretty quickly. So I don't know. I certainly am not going to take a worse number than I could have got at the open. Like, I think I could only play back at it at this point. It would probably be Liberty or pass for me just at the current number.
This game is also going to be insanely slow, like so slow.
Jay Buff's in the chat. Buff's a Cuse fan. I know I feel like he was about that performance yesterday, though. If I remember correctly, he was sort of saying like they may come up and show up. And I agreed with just like the sheer talent I thought could at least keep it within 14. But we'll go to another player's error game for Buff. He says, did I miss this? No, you did not. Feel like we're getting some value with Rutgers now at the current number. Do you agree? He doesn't think Notre Dame is 7 points better. So back to Vegas, Matt. Rutgers, Notre Dame. How do you see this one?
So Rutgers has one cover this year. They have not covered in any of their other games. In the one game they covered, they got to the free throw line an insane amount. They took 33 free throws. And they haven't covered any other game. And then the one game where they were significantly below projected was they were 18-point favorites against Central Connecticut. They lose outright by 13. In that game, they get to the free throw line 10 times. By far their lowest. Notre Dame is not a great defensive team, but one thing they're very good at least historically under Micah Shrewsbury, is preventing free throws. They're going to play really soft defense. They're going to make you beat them from over the top. They're not going to let you get into the paint. They're not going to let you get to the free throw line. If Rutgers doesn't get to the paint or the free throw line, they're not scoring. So as much as this is a big number, as much as Notre Dame struggles to score in their own right, I just don't see how Rutgers scores enough points to compete here.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Trying to think, the one game that Rutgers covered, I believe was I think I can tell you off memory. I believe it was the Rider game, because I had Rider plus the points in that game, and it was just, yeah, they lived at the foul line. They also, like, I feel like they kind of, it almost is a testament maybe to how bad Rider is this year. Much worse than I thought they were on a November 5th. Like, I've downgraded Rider since November 5th. So, Notre Dame, I'll point out, they definitely took some respected money yesterday against Kansas. It didn't work out. I have a feeling that's probably why the number has gone to where it is. Like, a lot of times, if you see some sharp money come in and hit a team and it loses, especially in this format, I feel like often you'll see the same team get hit the next day. Almost like, I don't even know if there's a reason for it. It's just like how it works out. So I gotta, my screen is not showing like a correct opener at this point. What did this open? Like 5.5? Do you know what the opener was offhand?
No,
I don't either. But anyway, it looks like we're at like 7.5 most places. But I'm also with you. I just, like, I think right now Rutgers long-term is doing what they have to do. I've talked about it a couple of times. Last year, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper was not a Steve Peichel type team. I think he needs to start from scratch and rebuild, but there is no talent on this roster. So it's hard to make a case for Rutgers. I didn't mind them like plus 16.5 yesterday, but that was more of a fade of Tennessee, and they were just non-existent. So I have no interest in coming back with them here. This is an interesting one. This is an early one that I kind of have a little bit of an opinion on. Trevor says, let's talk Delaware UNCG. Delaware has the size and can abuse Greensboro from 3. They also have Justin Fernandez back, who I think is going to matter at some point. I know it didn't matter against Southern Illinois, but that might have been a bad matchup for them. I kind of like Delaware here. How are you seeing Delaware Greensboro?
I don't like either team really at all. They're similar in the sense that both of them are going to allow a ton of threes. And obviously Delaware is the better three-point shooting team, and that favors them. But Jameel Brown missed their last game. He's at 53% from 3. If he's out, that's a huge loss. And then talk about UNCG. Delaware is, like you mentioned, way taller of a team. UNCG, bottom 10 in the country in height. But Delaware is not going to crash the glass at all. They're not going to get to the paint at all. There's going to be no free throws in this game. Both teams are going to protect the paint, pack it in, shoot a lot of threes, not get to the rim. In a three-point shooting contest, yeah, I prefer Delaware. I'd love to know that Jameel Brown is back. I would imagine unlikely, given they last played 2 days ago and he was out. But Delaware makes sense, especially in a game that should be pretty slow, given both teams have very small benches.
Yeah, I think my motivation for a Delaware play would be more of a fade of Greensboro. Like, this is the worst team that they've had in a couple of years. I mean, if you just look at the sheer amount of talent that has left that Greensboro roster in the past couple of years, it kind of makes sense that they're like way down from what they were really like 2 years ago. And then even last year, to be able to, like, they lost so much from that team 2 years ago. And then they kind of went out and like lucked their way into like Kenyon Giles, I think was like, just awesome there. last year, and then he leaves, and they lost a couple of other guards from that team. So I kind of want to play against Greensboro in spots. I don't know if I'm confident enough in Delaware, but it's certainly the way I lean at this point. My number was like right on. So if Delaware has an injury, I don't know if I want to mess with that game, which is, of course, early tip, neutral court. Crazier things have happened. Matt, there's 10 minutes left in the show. I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you have a best bet or a leg for the parlay that you want to lock in?
Let's go Georgia Southern -1.5 against UTSA at 9 p.m. tonight. UTSA is a disaster. They're really, really, really not good. They have one cover against Denver. In that game, they shot 48% from 3 on volume. It's not happening again. They're 30% on the year. Lost by 17 at home against SIUE. Lost by 11 at Texas State. Then on a neutral yesterday, so they score 50 points and lose by 11 to Abilene Christian. They're down to 8 guys in their rotation. They don't have Vashawn Alette, who is supposed to be their starting point guard. He has not played yet this year. The talent is extremely low. I don't trust Austin Clonch at all. And then Georgia Southern, they're a talent, not structure team. Like if they're playing a team that's structured, that has a style that is well-disciplined, they'll lose that game because they get killed on the glass. They take some bad shots sometimes, but they are very talented. They're very athletic, and they're going to run up and down the floor and make you play a lot of possessions, which means they'll win with the talent disparity. They're ranked about the same in KenPom, but Georgia Southern plus 44 KenPom spots on the year, and then UTSA -90. And there's not insane 3-point regression where it's like this team's unlucky, this team's lucky. Georgia Southern is trending up because they're better, and UTSA is trending down because they're worse. I'm not going to get remotely close to thinking I have any faith in this UTSA team to turn it around with their current personnel. In a basically even spread, give me the better team. I'm taking Georgia Southern.
Yeah, and it looks like Georgia Southern's taking some money, but as far as the parlay is concerned, since we're doing a 3-teamer, I'm just going to put Georgia Southern money line in the parlay. I mean, it's going to turn out plus odds anyway. So yeah, we'll go Georgia Southern money line in the parlay. And of course, I mean, if you want to bet, if viewers want to bet it straight, I think you could probably still lay 3 here if you had to.
Now. Okay.
Yeah. 3 or
it was 1.5.
Think,
it was 1.5 half an hour ago.
Yeah, that's the one fun thing about this show slot, 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern. This is when the board tends to light up. Like a lot of games move in this hour. We find them moving on the show often. But yeah, for the parlay, I think that's a great call, and people can make their own decisions. I mean, you can play a -160 money line if you play accordingly. There's nothing wrong with that. So, but yeah, I got so Bayou Bets in the chat. Is a friend of mine, and he texted me yesterday. He was just like, how did we not slam Abilene Christian? And it was like probably one of the things that with so many games just maybe fell through the cracks for me. I also had a lot of other plays, but yeah, that was one I wish I could have gone back and bet, because for a lot of the things that you pointed out right there, which I hope continue to play out tonight. I'll go way off the board here to lock one in. People want early games. Well, I got an early game for you. You're probably not going to want to watch this, but it is an early game nonetheless, and this will be the first leg of our parlay. We're going to head to the extra board if I can find it. Matt, I right at the beginning of the year, I read all your rankings. I looked at your spreadsheet, and 2 teams that we seem to really agree on from a ranking standpoint that stood out to me were how low you had Bryant, because I as a Siena guy, Jamian Christian stopped in for a day, and I didn't think he was going to do much. They are terrible. And then the other one was Army, who I think is one of the worst teams in the country. That's another one that very questionable coaching change that I think is kind of coming back to bite them a little bit, because that team's terrible. And I don't really know what the purpose of the coaching change was. The program is now, I think this is as bad as they've been in years. And I've got Army like probably a bottom 10 team in the country. They are going to play a neutral court game in Hackensack today, I believe at the home of Fairleigh Dickinson, against East Texas A&M. And I think this number is way too low. I could not believe that Army started to take money. It's the reason I kind of haven't bet it yet. Also, like, listen, I mean, I get it. East Texas A&M coming up here for an MTE. Army's closer in proximity. I doubt anyone's going to these games anyway. So I'm still looking at it as a true neutral court. But my number is much higher than 3.5 or even 3 some places. But for the parlay's sake, I'm going to call it 3.5. Last week on the show, I talked about Army, and I said, when this team finally plays someone in their weight class, meaning like a competitively lined game, because most of Army's games recently, 15-point dog to Marist, 15 points up to 18 points against Cornell, huge underdog to St. Thomas. And actually, to Army's credit, they're finding ways to not get completely run out in these games, which is surprising to me. I thought St. Thomas was going to run them out. I thought Cornell was going to run them out. Even Marist, they managed to keep it a little bit closer than I expected. This is the spot where I kind of want to finally go against them in a game where it's like team versus like team, and we only have to cover a couple points. So I'm going to throw East Texas A&M in. It is just a fate of Army. I think this team is bad. And any follow-up to that, because I know you had Army ranked very low.
Yeah, Army's not good. They've been feisty despite the fact that they haven't hit any shots. I bet you the market likes East Texas, likes Army because East Texas is on a back-to-back against Fairleigh Dickinson. East Texas is deep. They play a lot of guys. It was a slow game. I don't think that actually really matters. I would say that you have something on your hands.
Yeah, and again, I'm just kind of like, I was kind of shocked, being as it's an extra board game. It's early. I kind of expected East Texas A&M to get slammed at some point. And the fact that it's gone the other way, like I may have to jump in and add this as a client play. I don't know if I'm going to do that prior to the show, but certainly if this gets to 3 and it's like a widely available 3, like BetMGM's got 3.5 minus 105 right now. If that goes to 3, I might have no choice. My numbers might force me to play A&M minus the points there. And that's what I'm going to, for the parlay, we'll use A&M minus 3.5. So I'll put the spread in to juice the odds up a little bit. And that means with 3 minutes left, we got to decide what our consensus leg is. You want to go St. John's? We kind of agree on that one. We also, what is our current number for the Johnnies? I think it's -6. I think it's up to 6. Does that change are you good with that? Johnny's -6?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we've got 3 minutes left. So one more time, if they missed it at the top, tell the folks where they can find your stuff again.
Yeah. Follow me at Matthew Winnick on Twitter, WINICK for the last name. Everything I do is there. A lot of basket under review stuff. I'll have a lot of other stuff in the pipeline soon. Just my general thoughts, tweeting it out. Respond to any of my tweets with questions you might have with anything, and then I'll hopefully be responsive. Twitter is where you can find me and interact.
Is that I see the basket under review squad. Is that like a friendly competition for picks on the weekend?
Yeah.
Are you doing a fantasy football thing where the worst record has to like do something crazy or?
I think it's a little too late for that, but that would have been probably a good idea because I knew I wasn't going to finish last.
So yeah, I think you can get I think you're giving out 5 plays a weekend there.
Yep.
And again, I can't say enough about basket under review is awesome. It's a tremendous resource. It is part of my daily, reading material. Every morning there's something new. It really is a fantastic site. Love the things that you guys are doing there. Matt will be back with us at some point this week, possibly tomorrow, depending on what Vino and BP are up to and how their connectivity is. And definitely on Thanksgiving. We're going to hit the Thanksgiving Day slate. I wanted to make sure that we got a show for Thanksgiving one more time before we sign off. Today's 3-teamer, which is going to be Matt's play, my play, and a consensus leg, plus 492 odds. Matt's going to go Georgia Southern on the money line. I'm going to go East Texas A&M, not to be confused with Texas A&M laying about 100 tonight, but East Texas A&M minus 3.5 against Army. And then the consensus leg, Matt and I both agree, St. John's is running Baylor out of the gym. So that's your 3-teamer. St. John's -6, East Texas A&M minus 3.5, Georgia Southern on the money line. We'll see you guys tomorrow morning for more Full Court Press, 11 a.m. Eastern. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.